Welcome back to this Python course here on EdNight. If you have not liked and subscribed to our YouTube channel, please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on the notification bell to get more of our updates. We are going to be talking about how to get input from users. Then we will jump over to conditional statements. So first up, let's see how we can get input from users in relation to Python. So most times you're writing programs and those programs actually need our users to actually enter specific information. Like for example, you are creating a calculator program. You actually need your users to actually enter the number and the operator they wish to actually multiply or perform any arithmetic operation on. So there's a function in Python that actually enables us to actually collect this information, collect input from our users, and this function is called the input function. So we'll see what the input function actually looks like in a bit. So I'm going to be using PyCharm as my text editor for this tutorial, so you can use any other text editor of your choice. So now let's say for example this is like Facebook and we want to actually log our users in. So for our user to log in, we already know that our user needs his or her email and then his or her login password. So now they need to enter these two information for us to actually be able to log them into their Facebook dashboard. So now we can collect this information. Maybe the first one, I want to collect their username. How can I ask for input from the user? I use the input function. The input function takes something called a prompt. Now this prompt is going to be what is going to prompt the user to actually enter the data. So let's save this and run it and see what we get. So we actually see like a prompt actually asking us to actually enter our username. So my username is, let me say my username is John. Now what actually happened is that this program, once you actually have an input, the program actually stops and wait for the user to actually enter something, to actually click on enter on the enter button before the program continues running. I don't know if you understand, but like whenever you use the input function tells the compiler or the interpreter to actually wait for an input before actually proceeding. So this is how the input function works. So now we can use the data that we get from this input for different operations. Maybe let's say I want to print whatever your username is. Maybe print welcome. So I want to do string formatting here. So this is a program. It's a very simple program. First we are asking the users for their username, then we want to print welcome to that username. So let's save this and run it. So my username is John and then it's telling me welcome John. So whatever data we get back from this input, we can manipulate it into different things, that we want it to actually, different operation we can do with it. So let's say for example I'm actually creating like a calculator. So now for this calculator, this calculator will only do addition. So for this calculator to work, it will need you to enter like a first number and a second number. So let's say we have num1 as the first variable, and this num1 will be an input, and then let's say we tell the prompt is first number so we have num2 this will be second number. So now the operation I want to run with these two data, when the user is actually done collecting it, I want to sum both of them together. I want to have the sum of both of them. So let's print num1 plus num2. So let's save this. So first number I might say 2, second number I'll say 3. So actually now it's doing string concatenation instead of doing an arithmetic operation. It's giving me 2 plus 3 to be 23, because it's seeing whatever input a user passed in using this input function, it's actually a string. So whenever you ask a user for an input using the input function, the interpreter sees that input as a string. So if you want to use it for any other thing that is not string related, you actually need to convert it to that data type. So in this case I want to use it as numbers because I want to perform an arithmetic operation on it, and you know only numbers can only use numbers for arithmetic operations. So I need to convert this to an integer. So can do it this way. So let's save it and run it. So first number is 2, second number is 3, and then the answer is 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. So let's take for example like I'm actually doing multiple operations here, but I want to do one for each of the arithmetic operator. So yeah, I'm going to have subtraction, I'm going to have multiplication, now I'm going to have like division here. But check something, I'm repeating myself, just keep repeating this line, keep converting and converting. I could just convert this variable at a particular place. So this is not the best case to actually convert the input or the data gotten from the input immediately when you want to use it. You can easily write it this way. So now not only is the computer going to convert whatever input here to an integer, it's also going to expect an integer value. I hope you understand. Like, the computer is not only going to convert the input to an integer, but it's going to expect an integer, in the sense that if you give it another type of data type that is not an integer, it's going to give you an error telling you that the data that this input needs an integer to work. So I can easily come here and just delete all of this. So enter first number. Let me say in this case my first number is 4. So I click on enter, and my second number is let's say 2. So now 4 plus 2 is 6, and 4 times 2 is 8. So this is how we can use the input operator. Sorry, the input function. Remember, the input function actually stops the program or keep the program in a runtime till the enter button is clicked. So now let's take, for example, now we have actually added this int to this input. Let's see what error it will give when we actually like enter something like a string. So now it's giving me an error because of this input is only supposed to accept an integer, not a string. So let's move on. So the next subtopic we'll be looking at is control statement. So sometimes when writing a particular program, you want your computer to be able to take certain decision. Like, for example, if something is like this, I want you to do something. Mostly, I told you before that booleans are mostly used for decision making, right? So any expression that gives back a boolean value or boolean on itself, they are mostly used for decision making. So the way we can actually initialize this is using the if statement. The if statement enable us to actually make certain decision based on the value of a particular variable or a situation or a condition. So we are going to see this if statement in practical. Let me comment this line because we don't need it anymore. So now the if statement checks for a condition and actually gives back a particular value, like and actually does a particular line of code or block of code. So now let's take, for example, we have a variable named condition, and then our condition is equal to true. Remember, the if statement works on boolean, it works with boolean. Now we are going to write an if statement to check if condition is actually true. So this is the practical structure of an if statement, where we have the if, then we have the condition, then we put this column at the end. Then the next line must be, we must add this indentation of 4 spaces. Now we can actually write any block of code, maybe print condition is true. So this is how an if statement looks like. We have the if keyword, then we have the condition, then this column, then anything that comes under it with this indentation is actually part of this if statement. Anything that comes with this indentation is part of this if statement. So let's check this and let's see what we actually have. It's printing the condition is true, but then let's change this condition to false. If condition is now false, we have nothing on the screen. The program is actually done running, and we have nothing on the screen because of this if statement is checking if this condition variable is actually equal to true. I don't know that you understand it. The if statement perform a particular action based on the result, or the result of a particular comparison. If a condition is met, it will perform a particular action. If the condition is not met, it will not perform. So this is kind of a decision making mechanism that we use while programming. Maybe, for example, you're creating a calculator, so you want to check if actually what kind of operator your user actually enter. If your user enters the addition operator, you actually want your calculator to do an addition. If your user actually enters the subtraction operator, you want your calculator to do the subtraction operation. So this is what we kind of use if statement for. So now we've seen the if statement in action. So remember, the if statement, whatever line of code we actually want to actually be executed in this if statement must actually come with this indentation. Indentation is very important in relation to Python. So anything I want to be part of this if statement must have this indentation. So anything outside this indentation is no more part of the if statement. So I can type program ended, because the program has actually ended. There's nothing else. I'm not asking it to do any other task. So we see program ended. Even though we have this if statement like above it, and this if statement is checking if condition is true, why we can say that condition is actually false. So this if statement is not giving us anything, but because of this is not part of the if statement, so that's why this one actually printed. So you are seeing how the if statement looks like and what it's actually used for. The if statement is used to make condition. So let's take for an instance that actually a particular condition is not met, like in this case where we are checking if condition is equal to true, and condition is actually equal to false, as we can see. So won't we want it to have a second action? Like for example, if condition is equal to true, tell us condition is equal to true, but what of if it's not equals to true? We also want it to perform a particular action, right? So this is where we have the else keyword. The else keyword. So this else gives like a second like a second action in case the conditions are not met. Something like it gives like another action in case the condition is not met. So I can print condition condition is false, because this actually means that the condition is false. Just look at it this way: if condition is equal to true, I want my interpreter to print condition is true. Else, meaning if it is not true, I want my interpreter rather to actually print condition is false. But let's run the program. So in this case we have condition is false because the condition is actually false. So let me change this to true. So we have condition is true because the condition is actually true. So this is how the condition statement works, where we have the if statement that actually checks for a returned value. It actually checks for a boolean actually. So now we can compare different things. So let's write a simple program here. Let's write a program to compare two numbers. Which of this number is actually bigger? So now let me just clean all of this. So let me uncomment here. So I'll have an if statement. So this program is going to collect input from the users. It's going to be an integer. So I'll write an if statement to check which of these numbers or these two variables is actually bigger. So let's say if num1 greater than num2, remember to add your colon, then the indentation. Text editors like Visual Studio Code or PyCharm adds this indentation by default, but in case the indentation is not added, maybe the text editor you are using does not add it, what you actually need is 4 space. You understand? 4 space. You need to click on the space bar 4 times. That is the indentation you need. So now we can actually print now num1 is greater. So we'll now have an else, meaning that if num1 is not greater, that means that num2 is greater. So let's save this and kind of run it. So I have to enter a first number, let's say 2, and the second 3. So now num2 is greater, right? Because the num2 is actually greater. So this is how an if statement works. We see us using the if statement to check if num1 is greater than num2. Remember, the if statement works with a boolean. So this expression is supposed to give us a return value, right? And the return value is in boolean because we are using this comparison. Remember, whenever we use the comparison operator, we always get a return, we always get a boolean as the return value. So now this if statement is checking if this expression here is actually equal to true. If it is equal to true, it performs this action, but else it performs this action. So let's take for example that we are writing a more complex program and we don't only want to check for one condition. What if the two numbers are equal? What if the two numbers are equal and none of them is actually greater? Don't we want a situation where we can tell our computer to actually check if the two numbers are actually equal? For now, it's only checking for the number that is greater. If this number is greater, it's going to tell us that if num1 is greater, it's going to tell us that num1 is greater, else num2 is greater. But there are situations where num1 and num2 will actually be same value. So this will bring us to another keyword, the elif. The elif is used to write it like it extends a if statement. We can actually check for another condition. Now I can check if num1 is equal to num2. Remember to add your colon. Then we have the indentation. So I can print num1 and num2 are equal. So let's run the program. So now let me enter 2. Let me enter 2 again. So num1 and num2 are equal. So this is how we write an if statement. We have seen the if, the elif, and then the else. So now let me run down what this program is doing first. We are getting two inputs from our users, the num1 and the num2. So now the num1 and the num2, what are they actually? We want to compare which of them is actually bigger. So firstly, we compare if num1 is greater than num2. So if num1 is greater than num2, we are supposed to get num1, our interpreter is supposed to print num1 is greater. But if it is not, it is supposed to print num2 is greater. But now we want to check for a second situation or a third situation where num1 and num2 are actually equal. Then if num1 is equal to num2, it's supposed to print this. So I can easily remove this elif here and just put an if, but it is not, it will no more be part of this this if statement. The elif kind of extends that particular if statement. And remember this, the else is always the last thing to come. You cannot put the else before the elif. It is that the else is for the last case. If this is not true and this is not true, then the else is the last. Meaning that else, that is like in case none of them is true, that means this must be true. So this could also be, I could also bring something like this. This one is checking for if num1 is greater than num2, elif is checking for if num1 is less than num2. If num1 is not greater than num2 and is not less than num2, that means it is equal to num2. So I can easily just copy this, paste it here, copy this, paste it here. So let me save this. The program still works. So this else is like a last action in case none of them is true. This else is a last action. So I can actually extend this program to how long I want to. I can add another to check for another, like something else. In case I want to check if both of them are integer, I can have an elif to check if both of them are integers. So now, but one thing you should know, as I told you, that elif extends a particular if statement. So that means only one of these can be true, two cannot be true, only one can be true. So if I should try to check for the data type, so if I want to check if num1 and num2 equal integer are equal to an integer. So I want to print both are numbers. Now you see this if statement can only give a true in one of these conditions. Once it finds a true, it's going to run back. It's like it's going to cut the if statement. So if I run this program, so and I'm asked to enter num1 and I enter 3, enter num2 and I enter 4. Now the program does choose this because num2 is greater. It didn't go to the next elif. This expression is actually equal to true because of the type of num1 is actually integer and the data type of num2 is still an integer, which is making this expression true. But the if statement or the interpreter didn't actually get to this line. It actually stopped here because it checked for the first condition. The condition was false. It moves to the next. But the second condition was actually true because of num1 is actually lesser than num2. So it performs the action and then stops the if statement. But let's take for example that I actually like make both of them equal. So let's say 3. Now you see it's giving me this value instead of coming to this else, because of it's only supposed to check for if one of this condition is true. And now this condition is true. Remember, our interpreter reads our program from top to bottom and from left to right. So it has checked the first line, this condition is not met. Check the second line, it is not true. Check the third line, this condition is actually true. Then it gives us a value. like it gives us, it actually performs the action. So this is how an if statement actually works. We have seen the elif is not just you writing another if statement, it's actually you extending a particular if statement. So we have talked about how to get input from users and conditional statement. So if this tutorial was useful to you, please like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. See you next time.